my third live this evening, or in the last like the last 7 hours. And I just I had an original idea that I'm still getting all the way around to, that I really wanted to land. And but then I had a couple other ideas that had to do with experiences that I had. So I had an idea that I wanted to articulate from last week that I referenced with regard to someone that walked past my path while I was journaling another live last week, and he looked very dapper. And I had just been thinking prior to meeting him, within about like half an hour of meeting that person, about the significance of the appearance of color in our life, and both in nature, but also in our artificial man-made life, for in terms of like products, utilities, and art, and all manner of human endeavor that would have anything to do with color, whether in the natural vicinity or the man-made vicinity, which is not actually different than the natural vicinity, because we emanate from the natural vicinity tribes we've made. We're still in a natural reality. That's what I wanted to get around to. But then I had some ideas since then, natural experiences since then, that would inform my statements. And actually, some of the experiences I've had in the last less than within the last week are enough to actually make a person a different person, having experienced that, all the way from turbulence with family, to a non to all the way to being displaced, for intensive purposes, from a family setting, from a family to a vicinity, um, and then actually meeting people that are real, or some really unique people, that would give me insight. I made sometimes, like, as you sometimes I really do think that as it's been said, that we're fashioning our own reality. So we do well to mind not only what we say, but what we consume, and what we intend, and what we think, and what we mean, and what we attempt, and things like that, and what we venture to, both verbally, but also intellectually, personally, creatively, artistically, all the things that we endeavor. We may get all around the way around to experience witnessing first, and then experiencing what we endeavored to endeavor. And such as that, I had made comments about where was I going with that? Um I'm sorry, I lost your train of thought, but there had been one thing that I had mentioned on this channel, and then it happened for me very recently. I was trying to recall what I was reaching for with that. Um um but we really do experience a lot of what we venture out, and it can actually start to become our real lived experience no sooner than we intended it or thought of it. And so it's almost like writing your own movie. As you're detailing your movie, you're writing further chapters. That's actually, if you think about, like, a lot of times when you think about oppression, like, people talk about oppression. What is oppression? How may we transcend oppression? I think that one of the key, if I actually had to say the key to oppression that I can fathom, as a person, as a civilian, as a layman, it would be actually history. I think that history ensures oppression, because if you think about it, right? So I came from a less than equitable circumstance, where I don't think that my life circumstance. Oh, but I don't think that my life circumstance within the last year, half year, uh, quarter year, month, a few weeks, week, something of days within the last week. I don't think that it's equitable with what I'm capable of, and what I've offered, and even what I've landed. But when you walk away from, like, a lot of people, like, how is it that I made an actual, really, I'm gonna say this publicly, a comment that I made to someone. If you take the United States, right, a lot of people the world over, they relish freedom. They fancy freedom. They dream of freedom. My father was from Namibia. He was politically active in high school, such that he was actually stalked by officials in the Southern Africa region, dangerous officials, the type of officials that do horrible things to people in those times. I'm not going to rehash that history, but they had a Truth and Reconciliation conference in South Africa, where they actually detailed some of the atrocities that took place to people exactly like my father's, politically active young people, and maybe older people too, but especially young people, politically active juveniles, youth, young people, had heinous atrocities occur for them, in South Africa that we know of from the Truth and Reconciliation Conference. I think that was in the '90s because I learned about that in high school in the early 2000s, but it had detailed things from the '80s and before that because some of these police officers in Africa, South Africa, they were effective, they were brutal, they were ruthless, they were prolific, and they were exempt from their own doings, such that they were haunted by their own conscience. They were so effective, so horrible, so deadly, so efficient, so lawless that they were for all that they were hit that much harder with their own conscience because that's the one. I think that the reason that people are haunted by their conscience when they do horrible things is because not only are they aware of what they did, but they experience what they did because they yet are the person that they did it to. That's the heinous. That's what the word heinous means. What the word heinous means, and what a person will discover if they were to see or inflict or experience something heinous, is that we are and had been one another and one the other. In redemption and enlightenment, that's the experience of enlightenment is to appreciate one another as oneself. I don't think that there's any loyalty in this world, in this life, outside of appreciation of another person as being yourself. If you had ever been completely loyal to another person, I was I'm thinking more so of a person of the same gender, like in terms of like brotherhood or sisterhood, like fraternity or sorority. So I don't mean sanctioned fraternity sorority. I mean an organic, real life family of people that don't people that without outside of a love interest, without outside of the tension and the without outside of the tension and release and the polarity and the what's the word I'm looking for? Sometimes like when you're in love with someone or you're attracted to someone, there's a little bit of tension, like romantic tension, and the resolution of that is beautiful. That's one form of connection that can still amount to appreciating one another as oneself, but in the deepest sense, like a lot of like another grown ass man. For me, I'm talking like a heterosexual male, but another man, you're not getting all the way connected like that because of like romance. But if you can appreciate that that person is yourself, that person is the better aspect of yourself for intents and purpose on the deepest level. That person is yourself. If you've seen that, you can actually be loyal to another person beyond ramifications of self interest because it's still self interest because that had been you. But when something heinous happens, that what's heinous about heinous is that on a level, on the deepest of level, you are experiencing what you're doing to that other person because you're doing it to yourself. So you've seen what you've done, but more you may not have experienced directly the pain of it, but the horror of it is you. And then a lot of people they'd say that like, oh well, they did this and that back in the day, and now they have dreams about it, but life itself is actually a dream. So what happened there? What? But it's not a dream as in less than real. It's more than real for being a dream. A dream can be more than real. That is surreal, but still real, but beyond real. Yeah, at once. That's surreal. So life is surreal, and life is also a dream. So if you're dreaming about something, you're experiencing something. But I meant to say that these police officers, they would actually, it's been documented what they did in South Africa, but that wouldn't have been limited to South Africa. It would probably bleed over to the outlying area, such as like Namibia, where my father's from, the next country over from South Africa. But I a little bit digress why I referenced him. But um, uh, but I was talking about, but even my father, right? So my father he was an actual freedom fighter. Hi, Rose. What's up, Rose? That's a beautiful name, Rose. I love roses, and I love people named Rose too. The first girl that I no, I'm sorry, not the first. The first one of the first girls I ever made out with in school was named Rose. My first girlfriend in middle school was named Rose. She wasn't the prettiest girl, but she was like one of the realest girls. She was like a she was you're welcome. Shout out Rose. She was the first girl that I ever really I remember I had like everybody has that one friend where like their parents are like a little bit too cool for their own good for their kids' own good. So this friend that I had, he was a neighbor, and his house would be like the party house, like at the end of the year, at like the end of elementary, but then out the end of middle school, stuff like that, all the main parties be going down there. And I at one of them parties, I got to like the end of the school year that house with the end of the school year parties. I made out with this girl named Rose, and that was cool, man. I got past making out in the rest of my life, but it don't get better than that. But I'm not I don't know. I don't think that's the same Rose, but That's actually a beautiful name. I like that name, Rose. And everyone's name means something. I have Aliana here. That's another beautiful name. I love that, Aliana. I would estimate, some say you cool too. I would think that Aliana Lopez, that sounds like maybe Latin. And I grew up in New Mexico, so a lot of my friends and my love interests were Latina, and to this day I love my gente Latin. So these are beautiful people up in here. Shout out, thanks for rocking with me. And so what I'm saying is that my father, he was an actual a freedom fighter and organizer, the type that would go up against like as much as much smoke as you can get as a freedom person like that. My father was along that lines of person, but he still relished the United States and wanted to build another life for him. He wanted to either go to Europe or the United States. And like these people, like these police officers, they're like, yeah, man, they because he was actually having he had the support. My father was he was a strong student, and he had the support of his teachers in school, and they had connections with some of the churches in the United States that had scholarships. So my dad was actually good to go to come to the United States legally with a visa, but the actual government officials were fighting him. They were sabotaging him. They're interfering with him, and but before that, they had been stalking him. Like they had been at his. My father would duck out with his aunties, and these how I think my father he has Herero and Ovambo heritage in Africa, but the Ovambo people, he was telling me that their housing structures, they're very like sophisticated, and you couldn't sniff someone out in there unless you had permission to get all the way through the house. So they couldn't actually discover where my father was at, ducking the police like that, and he knew how to move like that. But they got to one of his family members that they were able to figure out where he was at by dealing with his family member and one of his male family members. But even him with his plight and his story, he wanted to come to um the United States like that, and he so all I'm saying is that the United States, even for your freedom fighters, people all over the world, a lot of people they rock with and they appreciate a lot of the freedom that we have in the United States that we've had in decades back, and that we still had the bounties that we had. But who do you know that set that up better, stronger, sturdier than the African American people in the United States? So the country that a lot of people would like to get to, and also that people enjoy while living there. Who do you know, pound for pound, that made? I'm not saying that because there are people that would argue that like sometimes the Irish people they don't get enough credit when you talk about how the United States was built and sustained. Same with Italian people, English people, maybe like Scandinavian and Swedish people as you get north, like where I'm at, and that's true. I think sometimes we discount the contribution and the sacrifice of a lot of people because it took a lot, and also like your Chinese people, like with at other times in the construction of the United States and the maintenance to the present day. But for all that, the African Americans are rocking with and up to and next to, if not beyond that, for the United States and the world over. But and someone said I really love history, and history is beautiful. But what I'm saying is that history has all things have a light and a dark side. So what I'm saying is that the greatest people, pound for pound, that not the greatest people, but some of the great people of the earth, but also of America, are African American people. But to this day, can we say that there has been one free American African? Can we say that? And the only reason I would cast it, one thing that means doubt is cast aspersion. The only reason I would cast an aspersion of if we have in fact had one emancipated American African is because we've had successful American African, brilliant, creative American African, affluent American African, empowered American African. I'm not trying to take shots at celebrities. That's not what I'm doing here. But I'm saying of the excellent American Africans who have amounted to emancipation near about for themselves. Can you say you're free if someone that you love is not free? If someone that you really love is not free, can you say that you're free like that? Because you would have to be worried about them. You'd have to be concerned about them. So from that standpoint, I'm not even only saying maybe not near African American have been free. Maybe potentially no one has been free because anyone that's been free to some degree, according to Arthur Avalon, in this existence, we don't until the point of enlightenment, and one could argue. So, um, uh, uh, um, in India, sometimes they have a vocabulary for things that we can appreciate, but we haven't laid a finger on. So, like as enlightenment goes, You have different stages and expressions of enlightenment that can be enunciated in Eastern thought, such as like uh, from India, like Bharata Dharma, the regulating justice, the beliefs about right and wrong of India. That's called Bharata Dharma, and then also Buddhism that's related to that. They would say that there's something like a sage. A sage can be a wise person that is so wise as to be free of fetters, but they're content with themselves. They're also free by being content, self-possessed, self-content, self-pleased, self-pleasing, self-efficient, self-supporting, self-sacrificing, like that. But they're not concerned about others, such as their freedom, but in their standpoint to be free, but also their prerogative, because it's still you still have prerogative at any degree. So a sage is free, but they're free unto themselves, and they're content like that, and they're not bothered about people, and they don't bother people. That's a form of freedom, but that's not all of what freedom can be. And also, so you may have people like that the world over who have been a lot like I see some questions here. I'm gonna hop back on these questions too because I want to answer field the questions on here. So you've had people that have amounted to different degrees of freedom, and one would be like a sage. Another one would be like a Mooney. So a Mooney doesn't have to be a sage. This is sage. I think that's general to a lot of traditions would use the word sage. Mooney, I think that's unique to India. A Mooney would just be someone that thinks for themselves. A person that thinks critically, that has something that can offer a critical thought, an original thought, for lack of a better word, a critical thought. That would be a Mooney, and that can be reminiscent of and maybe lead into being a sage and attend a sage or go beyond a sage. But it all can just be a simple person. You likely know some people in your life that they can be kind of like wily, like the wily coyote. You got some people that if you give them some time on their hands, they can figure out a problem. They can figure out how to do something, or they can think of something that I had a one of my father's caretakers was like that. His case, one of his case people, his case managers, and he was saying, like you whip out some money out your pocket, right? You got a $1 bill, a $5 bill, and a $20 bill. What's the damn What's the difference between those bills as they are paper? It's the same paper, likely even the same paper used on those bills. So the bill itself is no different. The one, the five, and the 20, but one says five, one says 20, one says one. One might even say two. I think the two would be cooler if you could still find a $2 bill. That shows you that it's something arbitrary because the paper itself is itself. Now, if you have a gold coin, shilling, dollar, that versus a silver or a copper, you can say that those are objectively different because it's a different metal. They're fine metals, but they're different. The rarest of which would be the gold. I read a book called the National Geographic Guide to Everything You Wanted to Know. It's this National Geographic book that goes ham on life. They explain to you how all that thing that, oh, they make this, and now, do you know you can buy this? They make that there, and you saying they this and that, and they got you by the balls. You don't know who they are. You don't even know what they look like. You don't when you, so a lot of you can dox damn near anybody, heaven forbid. But would you be so sturdy as to dox they? Who? Nah, I don't mean I'm not speaking about orientations when I say they. I don't. That could be misconstrued. I'm sorry, but I don't mean to be flippant about that. But when we say they, the powers that be, they do this, they make this now, they do that now, and we got to worry about them and they that we don't know nothing about. You get this book called the National Geographic Guide to Everything You Want to Know, and they actually break that shit down. You could probably do that shit better than they had did it. If they, again, I'm not trying to reference orientations when I say they, but like the they that we don't know that makes shit work, that got us by the balls like that. There's actually a book, just a simple book called the National Geographic, and I'm not gonna lie, I had brought that book back a couple of days ago because I was trying to get a repair on a vehicle that I was being given, but it ain't that hard to figure things out if you actually knew just a little bit of basics about how things have been, how things can work. But in that book, it says that all the gold that's been discovered upon the earth to this point, that's been mined, like all the way back to, like sometimes we don't know what things mean that are in our face. So like the 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers, this might sound old news to some people, but some people might not know. The San Francisco 49ers refers to the 1849 gold rush, where people are damn near, hey honey, hey Timmy, how was your day at school today, Timmy? Oh, we're going to California. Wait, California? We're living in Boston. and we're going to California with an ox and a buggy, and we never been outside of the city before, are you sure you're good to go like for across the? Are you sure we're good to go to California like that, the real California like that? That's some hellfire shit to spring on your family. Hey, honey, we're going to California. But I think people were lost like that. But and all the people that actually made it there to the gold rush of California, where there had been reported gold, to this day, all the gold that's been discovered on Earth, according to this book, could fit inside of a 60 by 60 by 60 foot box. 60 cubic foot box could fit all the gold that's been mined and discovered on Earth, uh, uh, of all time to the present day. And that would show you how precious gold is. But so if you had gold versus 26 times 69, damn. If someone asked 26 times, now I don't know 26 times 69 off the top of my head. There's a lot of there's also there's some I might know some resources that got some hacks for math. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know that 13 by 13 is 169. So I can tell you the factors of 169 would be 13 by 13. But I can't go past that. I can't do, let's see, 26. Okay, 26 times 69. So, madam, 2 times 20. No, damn. Okay, so 2 times 6 is 12. That'd be so, but then that'd be the so 12. So 20 times 60, I can say that'd be 1200. I can estimate 20 times 60 is 1200. Um, 6 times 60 is 360. So that's 1560. Is 26 times 60 is 1560. Um, 20 times 9 would be 900, 1800. So whatever I had just said plus plus 1800. No, no, my bad. Hold on, let me slow it down. I can still do this off of the top of my head. I just gotta go a little bit slower. 20 times 10 times 60 is 600, times 2 would be 1200. So 20 times 60 is 1200. 6 times 60 is 360. So that's 1560. Then I just got to do 20. Okay, so 1560, 1560. Um, uh, six, no, six, so 6 times, no, no, damn, okay, sorry. 1560 is 20 times 60. Then 6 times 60 is, oh, 1560 is 26 times 60 is 1560. Then 26 times 9. So 10 times 9 is 90, 180. 20 times 9 is 180. 6 times 9 is 20 times 9 is 180. See, hold on, I ain't looking. Somebody put it on there, but I ain't looking at it. Um, six, uh, 20 times 9 is 180. 6 times 9 is that, damn, was it 7 times, 6, 5, 5 times 9 is 45. So 6 times 9 is 54. So 54 plus 180 is 2. 54 plus 180 is 234. 234 plus 234 plus 234 plus 1560 is 17, 17, 234 plus 1760 is 9, 90, whatever 234 plus 1960 is the answer. So someone said 1794. But damn, I think I was pretty close going off just looking eyeballing the damn thing, eyeballing the number like that. But if I was practicing, yeah, if I was actually had a higher IQ, I just use a damn calculator in the first place instead of trying to flex, because that's what got your ass in trouble. Talking about the highest IQ is one thing, but the highest IQ in the world, say the highest IQ in the world is 499. You have the I think it's called Mensa, like where people click up. Damn, they must have some cool parts. 'Cause sometimes I wonder like, where does all the fly ass shit happen on the internet? Like sometimes like, I'm not gonna lie, you might turn on a little app at night and you see like, damn, it really be going down like that. How do you be figuring out where it go down like that and shit? But then you be like, they do got some things like I think it's called Mensa, like that's for people that are really smart and shit. Maybe they got like the little board, like you go around Mensa and they got the little board up there, or where the real actually fly sexy shit go down. But first you had to get up on Mensa to figure out that shit. You gotta be special enough first. You gotta be pretty damn special to be a Mensa. Then you gotta be even more special to get into the fly ass, sexy ass shit. Someone today was telling me like where I'm at here. Some this I'm gonna break this out. I'm gonna break out. I'm gonna be egregious. I'm gonna be profane with some shit here. I didn't know this, but apparently, if you ever open your door and there's an upside down pineapple on your door, you just got invited to a orgy right there. That's you're good to go for an orgy. You got like some people like trying to get them a blue check. Man, fuck a blue check. I need me a pineapple, man. I mean need me a little like upside down yellow check so I can get in that shit. But if you had been the smartest Mensa, like say that had been 499 IQ is the highest tier of Mensa. I don't know if you got any Mensa up in there with the 499. If you wanted the 500 shit, that's the person actually smart enough to Google that shit. So fuck you and your Mensa. I'm on 500 and shit because I'm rocking with Google. I got my IQ. So Google, a lot of people don't know what Google means. I think Google means Googleplex. That's like the largest like number that we have a unit for. So we have ones, tens, hundred thousand, 10,000, 100,000, million, tens of million, 100 million, billion, 10 million, 100 million, trillion, 10 trillion, 100 trillion, quadrillion, 10 trillion, quintillion, 106 septillion, octillion, maybe neptillion, dectillion, or something like that. But then you get all the way to Googleplex. I think that's 26 numbers out. But that had actually been named by like someone, a mathematician had a toddler, and they just looked at a number and said Google. So that's how big it is. The only one that can say is can actually enunciate the biggest number had been a toddler. Google. So if you wanted an IQ of a Google, past all the little Mensa people, then you just gotta Google that shit. So maybe if I wanted to find out where the fly ass pineapples are at, I should just be googling that shit. And maybe I should stop this live and stop trying to flex and shit and go figure out where all them pineapples be. Um, but um, but what I was saying though is that so you would have like um you would have so so you'd have like a sage, and then you have a Mooney. And Mooney is just someone that think original thoughts, and they don't have to be like fancy, or they can be fancy, and but it's just some. And then that family friend. So I'm saying like so gold is really rare. There is a difference between gold and silver and copper. I think when you're saying precious metals, you're referring to gold, silver, and copper, and they actually have so sometimes when you say currency, you don't see the overtones of electricity with that currency, and then also like moon and money, and like precious metals, and like with I think alchemy was deeper than what we're told, like generically, and such as the actual the ramifications and the actual the deepness and profoundness of precious metals in terms of electricity and things like alchemy, but then also like in what it means for bartering is that that's not so arbitrary. But like with our cash money, you can suss that out to be arbitrary just in the fact that the paper is the same between these different bills, but just because there's a different insignia on it, it has different meaning. It does have different value as long as we give it that value. But I think like real value is less arbitrary than just like stamping something. I think when you can print your own money, that's called fiat. It actually the demarcation of different bills is an example of fiat at play, I think. And so it took someone like my father's friend to point that out like that. And then he was also saying like, so you got the Big Bang, right? So this universe was created by a Big Bang, right? But have you ever heard outer space make so much as a damn sound before? But it had been Big Bang, and even a lot of like nature, it doesn't make a lot of sound, like generally, except for like maybe a storm, as profound as it is. So he was just like reason. Would that be like a Mooney how he think like that? But then you have something like a Bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is someone who comes all the way to the precipice of real, true emancipation. That is the understanding of cause and effect. If you understand cause and effect, you understand how sublime this existence is, as to experience ecstasy at that point, as to recognize oneself as another at that point, as to be the farthest thing from heinous at that point, and also to not bat an eye at heinousness at that point. That's like the precipice of enlightenment. But and then that leads on to things like I think you would call like nirvana and satori are the experience of enlightenment, but also they also constitute a degree a form of existence that's not bound by time and space as we are, but also can probably constitute different all positions of time and space, and that's a lot of where you're at when you're free like that. I don't know what I think, that, but actually it's interesting. The only word that describes what I'm so when you say Nirvana. So like some people would think of the rock band Nirvana when you hear that. Some parts of their music actually feel like Nirvana, like Teen Spirit kind of feel like that. But it's actually interesting how if you listen to Teen Spirit, that's a beautiful experience that we all know what that feels like coming through these school systems. But it's actually kind of beautiful because it's bittersweet. It's the actual darkness of the darkest place. The darkest of places, I think, is a lot of like school. Because if you ever have a reason to go into a middle school as an adult, you can almost hear ghosts in there because you can imagine like the torment. That's actually where life goes from being beautiful childhood to actually some of the adult rigors. I think it take place in middle school like that. But that beauty of like Nirvana is that they can see the beauty in something that dark as like what teenagers go through in school, and it's actually more beautiful for the darkness. So it's actually bittersweet like that. It's dynamic like that, and that's actually what ecstasy is. I think that ecstasy has a degree of sorrow in it, and that's such as the joy. The sweetest part of joy is actually a little bit bitter, and I think that that's what's experienced by, and that's why it's ecstasy because it's not only great, but it's also sorrow. It's all things. It's not limited by. It's a complete experience that's not limited by anything, good and bad. Therefore, it's as much good and bad, and as much free of good and bad because you're free of something when you're all of something. Like if you're a half-ass something, or say heaven forbid you have a secret that you can't get off your chest, it's daunting because you can't be total. You can't therefore be free, such as you're concealing anything in the least like that. But a lot of us, we have a lot of instincts that are good and bad. We do shit that's good and bad. We know shit that's good and bad. So we don't get to be free, total, unless we're all of what we are, all of what is. And that's actually like a little bit bittersweet if that's ecstasy. But I think that according to the East, Bodhisattva would be one that it's in. Okay, so you have the highest tiers of enlightenment that I know of. The highest tiers of development are there's three things that I know of that are the highest. No, there's four things that I know of that are the highest attainment for a human being. Probably the highest experiences also, but the highest attainment for a human being that I know of, and I'll go in order, and they constitute one the other. The highest that I know of is ahimsa. So ahimsa is a genuine disposition, no more no less. Genuine of disposition. That is non-injury to any being. That's part of India, Bharata Dharma, but more specifically, I think that's part of the Jaina people in India that practice non-injury to the point of being like some of our aesthetics around like veganism and vegetarianism. I would imagine that they I can't be specific, but I would imagine that they emanate from and they stem from areas like India because I think a lot of your people the world over. I'm making some sweeping statements, and I don't mean to be disrespectful or egregious with that, but I know that like with Eurocentric society, I don't know if vegetarianism is endemic to Eurocentric society from the point of feudalism. I don't know that. You'd have like the wizened people that probably weren't part of like the actual feudal structure, such as they were alienated by the townships and the church that ran the townships. You had the wise people that were sturdy around nature in Europe. But I don't know that vegetarianism is used to Europe, is endemic to Europe going back at least recent history. But I think it would be to India, like parts like the Jaina people, non-injury to any being, such as to actually allow your bed to be infested with fleas and to not deny the fleas of feasting on your own flesh, such as to not interfere with the courses and going on of nature and insects, to take it to that degree. Things like that had been the Jaina people. There are also some of the people, India, not necessarily only the Jaina, I think, but India, they have, like you say, holy cow, did that really happen? The idea of an actual holy cow, I think that comes from India, the reverence for cows. According to my friend who visited India, if you slake your hunger on animal flesh on meat, that's an actual bold thing to do. That like when I was talking about like have an actual pineapple on your door, inviting you to a orgy, something that I learned that actually happens today. I wasn't cool enough to have that shit happen for me. I met someone that has heard about shit like that. What would actually be as like actually crazy as sounding as that would be to eat meat at other times in India because you're rolling the dice like that. And a lot of times, like most people watching this, you probably gotten food poisoning at one time in your life around meat. I remember one time my brother and I got sick the same damn night because of something that our mom made us, and we were out bad like that with the food poisoning with meat. But back in the day, it's probably more. So you could say that if you eat meat and you've eaten meat in your life, it's imminent that at one point you'll get sick as a dog and damn near die from it. And that's probably everyone's case in here. One time, it actually my mom had did that to one of my friends. Now, when I think about it, I had one of my cool friends in when I was coming up, and he we were a little bit old to be having sleepovers, but he came. We were real cool and shit. He was a cool dude, but we were cool and shit. And I lived by the cool place to live, like with all the fly honeys, all the good competition for basketball, cool people, cool shit where I live. So he would be interested in spending the night where I live at and shit like that. Not just him, but I have a bunch of us dipshits over there having a good time. But one time my mom got his ass sicker than a dog trying to eat some shit that my mom made. Because my mom's a great person and she's made a lot of great food for me a lot of over the years. But she wasn't always 100% good to go around me. At least that time she got my friend's ass sick, and that time that she got my myself and my brother sick. I don't mean to be disrespectful to my mom when I say my friend's ass like that, but we did at least once get very sick off of meat one time. Me, my brother, and one of my friends. My brother together, but my friend different. But you could say that if you're messing around meat, that's about to happen to you once, at least once. But in the past, that might have been more frequent. So just that they don't really mess with meat unless it had been, unless you're actually living a kind of crazy lifestyle where you would actually be putting meat in your face, like or eating. I don't mean disrespectful, but actually eating meat. That was actually hardcore. Like it's, as much as so India, they could be more hardcore around the word soma. I think that comes from India. India, if you were to actually take your like a lot of times like in America, like everyone does drugs, man. Everyone's all about drugs and shit. Oh yeah, man, we were on this and that, man, and I was tripping on this, and one time I OD'd and this and that. But if you actually got some people from India, from India that are some users, man, they ain't fucking with your drugs, man. They're fucking with cobras and shit. They're fucking with maybe like human like feces and shit. Drugs that you know about and don't know about in ways that you know about and don't know about. Crazy ass shit. Go beyond this life, but come back and write a book about it. Tell you all about that shit. How we're about to go back there and shit, and it's still there right now as I'm talking to you and shit. Shit like that is India, but they would even them people they would call I don't mean disrespect I say them people, but people of that cloth they would call eating meat hardcore, maybe even hardcore than that type of stuff. Is how meat sound to them. It can sound. My friend told me that having visited there. But but ahimsa, I think that that's not very different or far away from the reverence for cows, but also the Jaina people in not doing injury to. So himsa means harm. Ahimsa means not injury to any being. To have that disposition, according to Out There Avalon, is the highest in a human lifetime. I heard something very similar to that today from a Viking tradition that I want to get up to with this. The next one after ahimsa, but part of that would be bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is probably one whose constitute is that has tasted that, maybe has set foot into or is familiar with true transcendent freedom that is unlimited. However, if you tasted true enlightenment, freedom, true ecstasy, uh, in unalloyed ecstasy, that means it's not mixed with anything. Unalloyed ecstasy. If you were to actually taste that, it would be so sublime as to actually be painful because sometimes like they would say that when you get up on something, right, you go up and then you come down, but you didn't see it sneaking up on you about to come down like that because you're oh man, we're feeling kind of good, man. But what's that up there, man? And then you start tripping, but then you have that one thought where you go from woo woo like that. So what goes up must come down, and that's for like everybody trying to get high on the weekend and shit. Everybody trying to get jacked up there like a car jack that won't stop cranking. And you're way up there, right? But everything do got to come down. We know. I had a friend like that. His mother was a alcoholic. He was one. Some of my true the friends I've had a lot of friends in life, but the ones I really grow from have been native. I had a native friend when I was an adult working at a pizza store, and I would give him rides home because he didn't have a ride, and I would use my mom's car. And he was telling me that his mother he was living with his mother, but she struggled around. I actually got to wearing cool shoes and shit. Like I was up here. I was doing a lot of traveling on foot recently with some Jordans, and Jordans are good to go. If you got to walk somewhere, you get them Jordan. Like sometimes they got different Jordans, right? I did my last video talking about Jordan sixes, but your actual like your sport Jordans, like some of them kind of crazy Jordans that you don't know what numbers those are, they're good to go for walking. But it had been my friend who's native who got me up on Jordans, and a lot of people who are native They have a lot of ideas about spirituality, a lot of understanding about spirituality and energy, and not the least of which our feet and what we attire our feet with. So it's not uncommon or unlikely or out of sorts to have a friend from that's Native American who's sturdy around things like spirituality, but also might have appreciation for footwear. And that had been my friend like that. But his mother was an alcoholic, and he was saying, "Man, I don't know why she does that shit, man. She's but I don't. There's nothing." He was talking to like, "Mom, do you really got to do that?" He's like, "Damn." He's like, "See, man, she's getting drunk, man. But I don't know why you do that because you're just gonna feel bad tomorrow, man. All she's gonna do is have a hangover tomorrow." So he wasn't even thinking there's anything cool about what she's about to do this night, tonight, Friday. He's thinking about tomorrow morning because it's gonna be that same old shit. She's gonna be, but it's that's actually very sad to see your mother suffering like that. That's actually probably worse than anything I've been through in life because I've been through a lot, but I haven't seen my mother struggle with hangovers because you have to have a. She was probably fighting she was probably tormented by something, maybe economic, maybe something deeper than that, or part of that too is that if you're having alcoholism as an adult with adult children, well on adult children, and you're suffering from alcoholism, you have something very critical that you're fighting to that would give you nothing better to do or not be able to be free of alcohol as it can be killing you. And so I don't want to make light of the plight of alcohol because I was able to come off of it a year ago, and it's as real as any fight, and it can kill like anything can. But he would just simply say that he didn't understand it because he imminently knew that she was going to be suffering, and he was going to be suffering too, looking at his mom with a hangover, without not doing cool stuff on a Saturday morning, not doing life on a Saturday morning, but somewhat dying on a Saturday morning, and barely coming past dying to just get back to the baseline of living that you had actually already been at before you got drunk. But now, I don't mean disrespectful with that word, but before you had partaken, now you're right back where you were. If you're fortunate, your health is right back where it had been before you partook of that. And so are the problems in the real fight that you needed to be taken up if you wanted to feel better and do better. But one of these times when you actually get jacked up like that, because you're actually like suspending your health when you get drunk. You're putting your health. You're like, here, hold my health for me real quick, booze. Hold my health. Hold this. Like a lot of times, instead of you say, hold my shit, I'm about to go fight the good fight. I'm not saying that we're never not fighting, but instead of say, hey, hold my shit real quick, I'm about to fight real quick. Myself real quick. Instead of you doing that, you're saying, here, hold my shit. I'm about to go play with getting. I'm about to go play with myself while you hold my health like that, and I play with my health like that. But can I please have my health back tomorrow? Yeah, because you're gonna give me my health back tomorrow, right at noon. Man, don't let everybody never hold your shit. Nobody in here, man. Not even booze. Don't even let that shit hold your health for 5 seconds if you can help it, man. And I wanted this. I was doing that video before this talking about like my history about alcohol and stuff, but that's just more so for educational purposes. But that shit had been whack, man. I'm gonna say that shit had been whack. Um, but things go up and come down like that. But also the going uppness, it has some of the downness in it. But the downness more so just has a down. But I think that if you were experiencing like near about like ecstasy, there would be something of bittersweet in there. But then when you actually get to the point of real unalloyed ecstasy, it's more of ecstasy for being both bittersweet, but also it get to be more bitter when you think about that there's still people that are dying and suffering, like my friend's mom with the alcoholism. Then I don't know where she's at now, but I know that she would probably be a lot worse off now. That's like 10 years ago now, and she was heavy on the liquor. She would have either been way worse off now, or she would have had a lot of fighting to do then and to the present day and beyond to because of what she was doing. So she would have she either is she's been through I don't know what he's been through or his mother has, but I know it ain't been easy. It ain't been sweet. Whatever she had to go through, none of us, but also with the alcohol, it'd be that much harder. So if you're about to enter enlightenment, you might have misgivings about the people back there that still need certain lessons that they may not get to in this life unless they have some real critical support. So the idea of a bodhisattva is someone that is actually familiar with enlightenment, but they would disavow or suspend enlightenment. Here, hold my enlightenment real quick. I'm about to go fight for us real quick. I'm about to go fight for you, which is me, real quick. You hold this enlightenment real quick while I go do this fight real quick until we all get up here. That's a bodhisattva. There's a song by Steely Dan called Bodhisattva, and if you listen to that, you can feel the real import and feeling of a bodhisattva like that. That song actually and he was familiar with Eastern thought and some of these Eastern sources that I'm referencing, like Arthur Avalon, to be competent to enunciate and even sing a song about bodhisattva. but he actually Steely Dan was a brilliant, a true artist and musician, and he captures the Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva. When you take me by the hand, when you show me, the shining night and night, the shining night and night, Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva. That's a dope song like that, and that's what Bodhisattva is. But then what a bodhisattva is leading to, and what is actually the attainment that is possible for a bodhisattva and those they help is called Hivan Mukti. Hivan is a that's a I'm not sure if in India if you pronounce the J if that's Jivan or Hivan. I don't mean to be egregious with that, but I think it might be Jivan. Jivan refers to an individual being and all members of being. Both that's actually kind of transcended. I've talked on other videos about how a lot of the real things of life, they're in the sweet spot. So whatever you do, like whatever you say, you want to become a guitarist, like I'm aspiring to, and I seek to do for as long as I may, is that it might be is I may be blessed with interest. Interest in guitar is an actual blessing. In some guitar books, if you've discovered an interest or a passion or an aesthetic or a romance around a guitar or anything, even pineapples on your door, that's a blessing. If it's enjoyable to you or it could be enjoyable to you or help you grow or help others grow, that's a blessing. And you don't even get to have interest in something without being blessed in it. So someone says, "Hey, I love rock and roll, man. I always have done that." If you ever really felt that way, you can kindle that again, and that actual interest is a blessing. But Damn, I lost that train of thought a little bit. But I was talking about how if you wanted to get on with something, you would have to find the sweet spot. So whatever your approach to doing, so to play guitar, there's different sweet spots about the instrument itself, but also the way you would engage the instrument. There's sweet spots about how you would get on to engaging it because you want to express yourself with the instrument. You know that to do that you have to practice. However, it's wide open. How the way you would make something difficult is give somebody nothing but options. So one of the difficulty of life is that there's nothing but options. But then if you can find something that if you can be so formidable and fervent as to actually begin something, anything, even if you were to like one thing that's kind of egregious is say, hey, see this is a parlor ukulele, and this is how you hold it. And so what you want to do is you play it like this, man. Go on some here with that, man. You're trying to scam people. That ain't no. If somebody say this is how you do this, that had been a scammer. You didn't know scammers could be that. You didn't know scammers could be that cold with it. You didn't know a scammer could be that convincing. Like sometimes I'll be places like I just talk shit to people, like you and I'll be like sometimes someone say oh hey I'll walk by someone in earshot and they'll be like oh hey, I just wanted to let you know that I wanted to like so I was what I'll be joking with them is that if I had to imagine how a robber sound, right? A robber ain't the sketchy fool that walk up to you looking like a robber. A robber is gonna be a nice polished guy like that. Hey, yeah, I just saw you had been I just saw you had been by the road and I was just I sound sketchy and shit saying that you just looking at myself in the camera. But I saw oh here's a better one. I was just walking in the neighborhood and I saw that you had that overhang, the tree overhang like that. I'm a tree climber. I've been climbing trees my whole life. I can scale anything, a redwood, a oak wood. I can scale any tree, so I this is my card here right here. So if you call me like cash up front, if you pay me just a nominal fee like on a regular recurring fee, I can fix that for you, and I'll be there. So you pay him, he doesn't not come there, but he jacks off what he's supposed to do for you. He jacks off your tree. He make your shit worse. It don't get done. You're in a worse list. Hey, but I'm actually gonna need that. Oh no, man. But I wasn't sure about the services, and I had given you that because because you had climbed the redwood trees, right? The ones in California like that are like 500 feet tall. And so I knew you had to do that. So I trust you, but I'm not. I don't know how to say. We kind of wanted to like try something different and it really is still there like that. So can we get a refund? Oh no, I don't do refunds. Yeah, because no, no, I don't do refunds. Uh yeah, I don't do refunds. No, I don't do refunds. There is no refunds. There is no refunds. like that. So you got robbed, but you didn't know that a robber could be like that well polished. But if somebody be like, "Hey man, this is how you hold the ukulele like this, man." There's so many ways to do anything. Like even like hold, you can hold it like this. You can hold it like this. If you want to be slick with it, if you want to be cooler than life, you could hold it like this. And if you practice with it like that long enough, you could damn well play. You could as soon play it better like this than the guy that holds it like this, the way you're supposed to hold a ukulele now. And this is a ukulele, and I went to school this many years so that I could sound like this when I tell you how to hold your own stuff like that. And oh, did you need help holding anything else? I can help you hold anything. You got anything that you need help holding for? Is there like do you need help with anything holding something? I can tell you how to hold anything because that's the way I do it. But so um, but if you wanted to get good with something, you would have to find a clever sweet spot in terms of engaging it to let you get better at it. And if you do it your way, you sustain the initiative and your interests, which are blessings. But also you can get it done as another person had not thought to. Even that ukulele expert had just popped up like this, because I'm the greatest shit ever, and I'm just this little ukulele thing. But if you want to do the ukulele, you got to do it my way though, like that. That's people's attitude in this life. But what I was getting around to saying is that so a lot of things are like a sweet spot like that. So another one of the sweet spots is that life is both heterogeneous, that's like distinct, different, one the other, distinct, unique, but then also homogenous, that's unified. But also it's the broad membership of existence and the individual like that. But Jivan is actual any member of existence, a bug, a creature, but then also existence in some total is also Jivan. So in that sense, enlightenment is deeply personal, but it's also beyond. It's also collective. But when personal really does actually become personal, it actually becomes collective, and the collective also is so the individual is in the collective, and the collective is individual. That's a sweet spot, but that's also what's referred to with Jivan Mukti, is that Jivan can and is soon referred to and does also simultaneously and transcendently refer to an individual constituent member of existence and the broader existence. You can see that sometimes, like when people say voting, like I'll be at places and like, hey, I'm like sometimes when you're in different areas, like you see different people and like a lot of people they'll let you know exactly who they voted for. Like, hey man, I don't fuck with that dude. I actually I'm not gonna lie, I voted for that dude the first time. But that dude did not have my vote. Like that type of shit he did. That dude did not have my vote. I'm not voting. And then I have other people like some of my family members that I have some family members. They don't say shit about voting. They're fucking serious. I'm sorry, excuse me. They're serious about like they don't. My family members don't say nothing about. Some of them don't say nothing about voting. But if I were to talk about like who if I were to say anything about voting, like to actually affront their sense of being entitled to vote, I'm not saying nobody's not worth their voting, but they're as dead serious as somebody that would talk about their vote and what that means to them. My friend, who'd you vote for? I voted for who'd I vote for. But what did you think about the other candidate? That's how my family members feel about voting. But some other people are like they let you know how they feel. But if push came to shove, they feel that strong about voting. Part of voting is that voting has a lot to do with literacy and the right to hold property, which amounts to livelihood and standing and social viability up to and including in personal and intimate relationships. All that is very attendant of voting. So sometimes you wonder like why are all these sexy people on the college campuses and stuff like that? Why are they so much to do about voting? Sorry, why are they so head over heels about this 80-year-old person that they want in office and things like that? These sexy people are like that might be one of the actual perks of being a politician because you wonder like what the hell is it worth being a politician, the kind of smoke you get for that, with like all you get to do is sign your signature on some shit that was already about to overwhelmingly win or fail. You get to sign your name on that shit. Why do you want to pay $3 billion whether you're the official president or the de facto owner of this social media thing that also have a lot of pull like that? Why do you want to have that much pull, whether the official or de facto, as to spend that many billions on a social media platform or on a campaign? Why would you want to do such a thing? And what's the, if you want to do such a thing is because you're getting them looks every once in a while. What's the purpose of it? You're getting them looks of them people that are really, really about politics, really, really about voting. You didn't know that they could actually look that good, some of them, or be that cool, or be that sturdy, but more so look that good. You didn't know that people that are really about voting and politics and stuff like that, that they could really be that much of sex appeal. And even some of your people that are old enough to be a president of something, they're not people anymore. They're not beyond like things like word checking for like who's checking for them and like things like sex appeal. But sex appeal is part of status and social standing and economic viability, livelihood, owning property, and voting for who allows people to own property and protect property, and all that thing that has to do with just this aesthetic and sex appeal of voting, but also what it intends to just seem like to like you, yeah, you would be able to vote, or you would act like you could vote, or you would be entitled to be a lot of like ideas, our ideas about like class, but also like sexiness. A lot of sexiness is about entitlement. If you think about it, like a lot of people are like, oh man, I can't stand that entitled. Here go another entitled guitar player. But if you actually think about like what turns you on, there's a lot of entitlement about it. Like a lot of actually what like somebody that like they're like so like two people can go. Some people say I'm too sexy for this place, too sexy for this place. I'm too sexy, yeah. A bouncer at the club, a bouncer at the club, a bouncer at the club, a bouncer, yeah. Too sexy for my job, too sexy for a bouncer, too sexy for the club. But two people can't say that the same damn way. They can't. Like you wouldn't be like some people are entitled and they're sexy for being entitled, and some people are entitled and they're pretentious for being entitled. But entitlement, it can amount to being as unsexy or as sexy than sexy. Entitlement can, and a lot of to do with like colleges is about sexiness and entitlement, and a lot of politics is the same way. But your actual vote as a person, one is that it allows you to have it's like you can't actually have a personality without pretending. Like a lot of people talk that they're real, but I think that I was extrapolating. I listened to the great Jason Black on YouTube, and he was saying that generically, broadly speaking, to make a sweeping statement, men and women, like I'm not saying anatomically, but a male and female psyche are they have different capacities, strengths, but also limitate. I think that all this existence, like when you got this phone, right? Like I'm on a smartphone right now. Whatever is however this phone has been designed to suit me as a user, as a general user, as a mass general consumer, as much as it is, oh, we have this feature, and I just want to let you know about this feature, and it got all these features that you didn't even know you needed, or you would have bought it without half those features if because you don't actually need them, or have the time to figure out how they work. But as much features as it had that serve you, it also has some features that don't serve you, some fail safes to make sure you don't get to, if you actually did look into the features, to make sure you don't mess up around those features or mess up around other people's features or the ability to make new features, to make sure you don't mess up with it. It has like fail safes like that that keep you in check, but it keeps you connected. It benefits you, but it as equally humbles you and keeps you in your margins, in your place. Because if it wasn't, you could get out of control and the whole thing could get out of control. I think that's a lot of what, like a lot of times, like you see a lot of advertisement for cybersecurity, right? They would say like, "Oh, come get an IT degree. You can make $130,000 a year with this IT degree," stuff like that. You don't think about like why are they signing everybody up for these cybersecurity degrees, right? If you think about it, a lot of things like are like top down, ironclad control. A lot of technology is for ironclad control, both in our personal lives, but also with the devices themselves. It's ironclad control. They ain't playing with who they're about to let do this and that, because a lot of our society is built upon privilege and entitlement, going all the way back. So like in the time of slavery, you have your universities and stuff like that. They were the seats in the constant. They were the training. So you go to educate to a university for what? For a liberal degree? I'm not deriding liberal arts degrees, but in the past it had been a bachelor degree, right? You go to university as a bachelor. I think it was male. The males were the students, but you wouldn't have a bunch of males together unless there were some pretty counterparts not too far away. So it wasn't. I could imagine that colleges were likely always for intensive purposes co-ed, because what the hell do you do at a college except for to get to be around sexy things or to further be viable around sexy things is what we're doing in colleges. But the colleges have been see so you go there as a bachelor and you go through these degrees and you become a more polished bachelor, such as to have a degree of entitlement. But what did you get onto? You became trained as an entitled person. The universities train you in privilege and entitlement in the first place. Yes, you learn some knowledge. Part of power is knowledge is part of power, and also supply and demand is part of like value and part of power, and controlling access to knowledge is part of power. But even knowledge itself, it only as these colleges have been concerned in the past. You think you go to the college to figure out how to invent a wheel or to figure out how things work or to create things. That might be a part of it, but the real creating is coming from tinkering, according to Nassim Nicholas Taleb. So you would go to a college not really to actually learn how to be an inventor or even to be an artist or a musician in itself. Those may be a secondary byproduct of being around the type of polished and seasoned people that would be interested at a college. But you really go to a college because that's where the power is concentrated, but it's actually accessed, enjoyed, and mitigated, and transposed, and maintained, and built around privilege and entitlement. So you go to college. You go to power. There's another. You go to college for networking and knowledge, but that is actually only to make viable and also constrict and therefore make more potent power, which is enjoyed and mitigated and realized upon the lines of privilege entitlement, all the way up to what comes with that, including the right to vote, hold property, have the kind of pull that comes with that, the sway that comes with that, the aura that comes with that, and the social viability and status up to and including professional, personal, and intimate relationships that we're all looking for and that we're all striving for and that sustain us in this life. And that's what a lot of colleges are about. But um, I a little bit digress with that one, um, but so um, but I was talking about like, but Hiban Mukti is like, that's when you're both. But for voting, but like people that feel way about voting, you actually really do feel like your vote counts. Like like when you go up to like to vote for somebody for something, that's some real ass shit, man. Because you one thing is you could get in a hell of a lot of trouble if you were not congruent about how you the pretext of how you were going up to vote, because things had to be in order for you to get to vote. You had to be a real you had to be you had to be validated and viable to vote. And also you feeling that way, it informs your psyche. So a lot of people that identify as voters and that enjoy the sensation of voting, it's not only for your it's like an all a la carte thing. Like, so yes, your participation in it substantiates it. It makes it more believable to others, but more so, it makes it more believable to you. It makes the entire politics, which you can appreciate as much fiat as the currency, according to Todd Bay, if you were to understand and realize the discrepancy between the history that we're taught and also the civics that we're taught and that we see versus what they really actually are. A lot of that is fiat. Most of that is fiat. But if you were to really, but so by you having and by you giving a damn about the politics, that makes the politics more able to be fucked with by a lot of people to give a damn about it. Because everyone you know, all the sexy people you know, all the important people you know, all the respectable people you know, which is important too, respectable people, they all buy into it, hook, line, and sinker. They got the sinker coming out of their ass. You don't even catch them with the hook anymore. You catch them with the damn sinker. This politics shit. You catch people with the sinker. No pun intended with the politics shit, but instead of like normally like you catch the fish like, oh shit, they try to get them a little like lunch, and then you got them out there and they're no longer with us for here on after. They're for henceforth now and forever. For so you bit this wrong thing for lunch, and you shall cease to exist both here now, henceforth now and forever. And if it is henceforth now and forever, did you ever exist in the first place? Because you won't remember that shit had happened to a fish like that. But a lot of us that give our energy to politics, they get us the same way, but they don't get us through the mouth because they didn't even got no hook. So politics, they didn't even got a hook in it, right? It's just a damn sinker out there, the sinker of politics. So here go the politically astute, upstanding citizen fish, part civilly the part I don't know the here go the socially enlightened civics the socially enlightened civically inclined dutiful patron and Samaritan exercising both their civil liberty and their due privilege to exercise the right to vote. You don't even need a hooker for that. They just take the sinker, and the sinker go. They take it hook, line, and sinker. It come out their ass, and now you got them all their participation, effort, and they're arguing about it, and they're compromising their relationships. They're killing their family members based on the attitudes and pretenses of it, and you just get them out the water like that. But it hadn't had to be that important, but it does feel that important because that's how much you actually matter. Because in the broader sense, you as a personal person, you may think that's a lot of what people are reaching for. Like when people talk about how profound it is to vote, it's actually a deeper thing they're reaching for. Is they're actually talking about the actual the how deep we are and how deep this existence is. That we are one another, one the other. We are this existence. As you change yourself, as you make up your mind yourself, you impact this reality, including up to and near about all the other constituents of members of this existence. You potentially could impact all the members of this existence. I think like during the time of the Manhattan Project, when they're messing with the atom bomb, they thought they were about to mess that off. Like they didn't know what they're gonna do to the Earth, and it's like different stratosphere and like the atmosphere and the biosystems and the time and space itself. They didn't know how bad they were potentially gonna jack that up, and they were willing to do that based off politics. They were willing to compromise this universe if it came to that. If they would have messed around and did that, um, uh, based for off of politics, off of fuck those other guys, man. We're about to make this shit that might like delete this existence, but fuck those dudes over there because they feel differently about shit than us. But then that was the atom bomb, but then they got up to the hydrogen bomb, and that's supposed to be like so many orders of magnitude stronger than the atom bomb. But they were willing to also try that shit. The atom bomb hadn't fucked over life itself. Although like I was in the Twin Cities for a long time, and you have some lakes around Twin Cities like Lake Phelan on the east side of St. Paul, and it has like a lot of. I delivered students around there, and I spent time there with my uncle when I was a child, and it has a lake there. But I met an actual like nondescript high ranking member of something at a gas station because I was saying some half ass shit to like a security guard in good humor and nature. He hadn't seen something like that. He shook up a conversation and he was saying that back in the 50s and 60s, a lot of children were dying around Lake Phelan, and there's like these hospitals around that lake in St. Paul, and they were actually centers where a lot of children were dying inordinately at the time of the Manhattan or like those nuclear detonations. So they had been in New Mexico, where I also grew up, more so grew up when I was younger, and the actual, but not only New Mexico, but southern New Mexico in like the White Sands area. It had like not far away from like where you would estimate where it would be like things like Roswell and Area 51. I think Roswell Area 51, if that actually is a real place, I think that what people would estimate Area 51, that might be more so Arizona, but that whole New Mexico Southwest, that's Native American land. That a lot of that's promised Native American land and current Native American land, and that's exactly where they would go to try all that bullshit. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but actually they took that to the Native American land, the beautiful land, the land of enchantment, the Four Corners area, New Mexico, also a very poor area that doesn't have the same political representation and pull that it would otherwise have if they had the economics of other places. That's where they went to go do that bullshit. But then it actually you can't control the fallout, so it came up uh, to Minnesota, if not the world over. But you had the testimony of this person saying that children were dying in Minnesota off of that. Um, but but that's just an example of how and also the atom bomb is very small. An atom is very small, way smaller than we can fathom. It had been an atom, but an atom can affect something that big. So if you actually were to change within yourself or make your mind up within yourself, you could potentially impact this reality or these realities like that. So that's what you're experiencing when you're voting, is that you know that it actually is powerful. If you're voting, that's powerful because your vote, your individual, you yourself as your mind, as you make up your mind, as you make up to all that it takes for you to be a competent member of civil society that's still viable as a voter, all the struggle that would take and sacrifice of both you and your family that give you that standpoint. to have not messed that up all the way to the point that you're an adult. You're doing all that to you're actually you're supporting you're stamping another person with all the things that make your livelihood, that give you an address. With your address itself, you're saying this is where I live at. I've done all this in life. I couldn't do nothing or get wherever your address is. That speaks to a lot of your background and what's possible for you now and in the future. But you're putting your address down next to somebody's name to say that's how much I feel about this person. That I put my address next to them, all my different demographic information right there next to that person because I want them to succeed. So that's deep, but it's just to say that also enlightenment is the same way. Is that it's Hivan Mukti, so it's an individual person becoming enlightened. But when an individual person comes enlightened, all of beings become enlightened, and when all beings become enlightened, also an individual person becomes enlightened. So a bodhisattva might be someone that they struggle entering Hivan Mukti until they feel they have more service, and likely righteous, self-sacrificing service had been like a Hivan Mukti. But then I talked to a brother today who was an actual living Viking, and he was telling me that they have something in Viking culture where I had him repeat it for me 3 times in a row. But there's like he knows these things. He says them verbatim. Often he's not just saying a bunch of random stuff. He has verbatim the qualities that distinguish. It's interesting what this form of existence that he alluded to is almost verbatim what it said in India. And actually, at the beginning of one of Arthur Avalon's books, he says that when you study like the human body, like what are called the chakras. I think a better word is padmas. The chakras. When people look into the chakras of yoga and the human body, they're confounded because a lot of Western materialists are confounded appreciating the chakras, because if you were to dissect a cadaver or corpse at a morgue, you would not necessarily appreciate the padmas or chakras, but they're appreciated to be there by a lot of great sages. What he's saying is that they're actually centers of subtle psychosocial force, but etheric force, energy that is broader than the human body, but it contacts the human body when living at these ranges that are the padmas, and it has unique effects that can be appreciated, but it's less than and not limited by our actual blunt, crude, gross, objective perception and understanding of a human body, such as it confounds actually our understanding of physiology in terms of strict hard fast science, because there's actually some limitations to hard fast science and what we can estimate with it, but also what we assume with it. But what he was saying is that uh um I lost the train of thought. Um but so at these different, like, say your Padmas, right? So you have I think the lowest one is called the Muladhara. I think that's near about an attendant of your genitals. You have a few, like you have some in the where your gut would be. Then you have your heart is another center. Your throat is a center. Then your like they would say like your third eye, but actually I think the word for third eye is Saraswat. No, is it? That's the crown chakra. So the I think the base of all of your psychic activity is like the sacrum, the spine, the house of Kundalini. I think Kunda, that refers to snake. So it's like a snake like force. And when you say snake, it's interesting because your body is dual like that, right? And most people, you don't think about it, but it's appreciated that your left brain controls your right hand, your right brain controls your left hand. It's appreciated that your right brain is more creative, but also when you use your right brain, you use your left hand. But also when you use your left hand, you affect your right brain. Such as when you do something like play an instrument or you do something creative, you actually whatever you do creative, you affect the part of your brain that's part of that, and you create pathways there. Such as you can develop your brain by using a different hand or something like that. But the thing that's interesting is that it's crisscrossing like that. It's going from right to left like that. But that's also some related to something called pinga and ingala, I think. So your noses are like you're not. So I've said in this, on other videos, that different human families have some propensities and gifts as a collective human family, just like regular families do. I met this guy a couple of days ago. He was like a self style genius. He's talking about like some of the same things that I actually have said recently on this channel about numbers. I was doing a video recently about harmony, and I was talking about a book I read about the number 12, how the number 12 can be significant in terms of harmony, in that if you have a musical scale, you have generally seven notes in a major scale, and then but that you have a viable note seven tone scale, it actually requires there to be a possible 12 notes, including those seven, that give those seven the distinction of sounding like a scale. So our music is based on the number 12. And the Western music like that, the number 12. But if you were to put the 12 in a circle, because music doesn't actually go up or down, it repeats, just like life repeats, history repeats, cycles repeat, harmony repeats. So music doesn't actually go up or down because you go from one quality, one form of, like, say the note C, you exactly double that, you go to the next C. So if you were to keep going forever, you would hit these different multiples, ripples of that same note as you double it, and so you go on forever like that, getting different iterations of C or lesser of C, but it's still iterations that have the same quality. However high or low you go, or the same you go, it still has the nature of a C, as those ripples like that, those functions, those fractions like that of an infinity. You could almost say, I'll be that sound deep. Harmony is fractions of infinity. Infinity is infinity is a fraction of existence, and harmony is a fraction of infinity. And harmony is a also about our experiences are a fraction of infinity, yet our experiences are greater than and a part of and no less than any degree of existence. Does that sound deep? That could sound pretentious or deep. I don't mean that actually. I don't not mean that, but that could sound like poetic or pretentious, as I'm talking about pretentious. But then again, who gets to be cool for being pretentious? Like, oh, it had been Wordsworth, and we're just having a little bit of word. Oh, you want to come over for some poets? So imagine you met the hottest girl in town, right? The hottest girl, this little thing that got this little that for no damn reason how hot they are like that. Hey, did you want to come over? What are you doing tonight? Oh, we're just having a little word salad today. Me and Wordsworth and Longfellow and Byron. He sometimes, so we have Byron over there, and then also we have Don Juan. He had been from he just visited here. Don Juan. We also have Picasso, and then we have a couple of young people are going to join us. We have someone named Romeo and Juliet. They're a little bit young, but they're going to be with us. They might have something to contribute. And then we have this guy named Shakespeare. He's a ham with it, man. It's gonna be a lot with him there. And then you also have a guy named Dexter, and I was playing that shit. Dexter's Lab, no, not the other Dexter. Dexter's Lab, because Dexter had been very brilliant. Dexter's Lab. And then so all of us, we're just gonna come over and have a little word salad. Would you care to join us? Oh, oh no, wait, my bad. Did I actually sound janky like that? That would run a person off the way. I said, oh my bad. But we also had we had a couple rock and rollers. Damn, I was thinking, what was I reaching for with that? But we had so yeah, that's what it's about to be. Would you care to join us? Oh yeah, it's dreamy like that. Okay, what time does it start? So that's one response. The hottest person in town is interested in come join you for word salad based on who's going to be having the word salad like that. But can I ask? Like, I was going to bring my friend. Is there going to be anything to eat there? We're going to eat. Oh no, no. It's just a word salad like that. We're just gonna have word salad like that. You can actually it can the words can they can sustain you for here even on to eternity. One meal like that, a word salad with these people can sustain you to eternity. Wow, I'm so there. Which I don't even I can't wait. I can't wait to be there so much. I'm so there already. No, no, no. I'll see you there, right? We're salad, right? But you're coming right for the salad? Yeah, of course. We're salad. Where else would I be on Friday? We're salad. I'm there. We're there. So, but then you got Maya. Hey, what's up, man? I'm I was just can I show you this thing I've been working on? It ain't nothing, man. It's just a little something in my notebook, man. I've just been I be messing with stuff, man. Like sometimes I be thinking about words and stuff. Like people be talking, but like they don't realize how like sometimes like one thing they say it can sound exactly like something else. Like for example, right? So like you heard of like Bonnie and Clyde, right? Like remember Bonnie and Clyde? That was dope, right? So like if Bonnie and Clyde were like so that's a partner, right? They're partners, right? Partnership, Bonnie and Clyde. But a partner that can be like something you're like something above board, like a business, or it can even be like some street, like some like some like that can be like some hellfire stuff, right? Like a partner, right? That can be like some street time, right? Like a partner, right? Or it can be like some lovey dovey stuff, right? It could be all that, right? So if Bonnie and Clyde were up on something, they put themselves up on something. Probably Bonnie had put them up with anything, but Bonnie had put Clyde up to something. But they were both partners now, and it didn't go the way that they wanted it to. Would they be forced to resort to Plan B? And what would they mean by Plan B? And so I just be thinking like that, I just be messing with stuff like that. But did you want to like come kick with me? Like I got this little spot right, like so it'd be this lake, like in Minneapolis, and it'd be like this one spot there where it's like it's got like some plants there, but there it's like fall, so they're kind of like dry a little bit. But you can go there, and it's like you sit on the concrete like that, and your feet hang out, but they don't quite touch the water, and you just chill on the water like that. It got like the boats like that, but it'd be cool like that because they got music like that at the bar, but nobody can really see you except for like they got but you ain't out nowhere. It's like this little dock like that, and people will walk out onto the dock, onto the pier, and they'll just go fishing and check it out. But nobody get to see you until you already saw them. So it's just a cool little place to chill. It got rock. I be my guitar, and I just got this little notebook I be messing with. And it's like like how sometimes like you go like to the Starbucks like something like that, and it'd be that fool in there drawing fools like he didn't even ask for permission, he just drawing fools like that, and people rock with that. Like I be writing like that, so I just be writing stuff like that. So I was wondering if like you come chill with me, and I just be like writing stuff in my journal and shit like that. Call a cop on your ass like that, man. Talking about word salad now. You've talking about so now everybody gets to be pretentious the same way. So that stuff I said might have not been cool, pretentious like that. But um, but I was thinking that but Hivan Mukti, that's like self and other and self. But the things that would constitute an actual really beautiful person, that is a beautiful person, for lack of a better word, disposition, but a beautiful person, they would amount up to what's called ahimsa. But in the Viking culture, what this person was telling me, he was telling me some of those things would be like, in Viking culture, if at any point in your life you don't have to always been that way, even the last year, month, week, but if at any point in time you had been industrious, courageous, um, uh, kind, hospitable, a few more like that. Those were real ones that I said. There, a few more. You would be possessed of what's called hell vigor. You can say that once in this life you had been possessed of, and therefore you had been hell vigor. It's spelled Heilvgr, I think, Hellvigger. That's that type of person I met that could actually say that. But he wasn't talking. He's like, because if you had been a person who had been courageous, you showed hospitality, and you were just, and you were loving, and you were industrious. If you had been, and he knew all the last each one of them to the T, but he talked like that. If you had been all of those just once, even one time, once like that, you would in our culture you would have been something called hell vigor, like that. Man, that's the coolest thing somebody ever said to me in my whole life, like that. That what that brother said like that. But it's actually very reminiscent of India, like with the ahimsa. Like that would actually, even though hell vigor sounds badass like that, and it is badass if you lived it out, it still amounts to ahimsa in that not doing injury to yourself and other beings needlessly like that. But what I was saying earlier is that like in America, my father would he would want to be so my father, a real freedom fighter who had smoked with those type of people that would be like at the Truth and Reconciliation conference in South Africa. Their associates, the exact same time they were doing those atrocities, like in the late '70s, had been my father out about that business. He was still interested in coming to America, and I think that a lot of America has been created and sustained by countless sacrifices of many people, but nowhere, no more so or no less, but no more so. I'm sorry, no more so than the American African people in the United States. Yet, such as none of us had been free yet. I think, in the sense of Hivan Mukti, because a lot of us, all of us, are fettered to some degree, and until all of us are free, none of us are free. A lot of people that appreciate voting, like, hey man, you're bogus if you don't vote, man. You're not wrong if you say that, but also, do you actually advocate or have an interest in the well-being and welfare of other people Do you actually make but not just the well-being as the person you're voting for says sees fit, and you do for voting for that person, but do you have an interest in the unalloyed, inalienable freedom of your fellow brother, your fellow sister, your fellow member of life? Do you, for all of any stature, of any background, of any potential, do you have the same will for their well-being that is freedom as for yourself? Then you can say that you're wrong if you don't vote, if you don't do your due diligence for yourself and therefore others, which are your same self. You would be bogus in not voting like that. But also, you have an interest in their freedom, the actual unallocated freedom, but also the freedom to choose for oneself what's fit for another person, such as to not judge that person to your own estimation as your limited being, by limited by your own experience. Do you afford them enough grace and dignity to be themselves freely? Do you like that for anyone that would feel entitled enough to judge another person, or even to be a voter? Do you feel that way about other people, such as that even some of the greatest people, one of the greatest people, according to what's his name, um dang, sorry. There's a YouTuber who says some original content about African American. Um, um, he had the book The Art of Macking. Who was that had the book The Art of Macking? There's an author. He has a book called The Art of Macking. I read it back in the '90s. And then I didn't get as good at macking as I thought I would then. But it still he some people would say that like the content that I reference about real social dynamics, Tyler. Um, I think he was inspired by a group called by something called like the pickup artistry community that was prolific around Las Vegas. I think it was called there was something that came out. Neil Strauss had a book about pickup artistry that changed the world, because a lot of like we have like some of your really influential people now, right? Like, say, I don't mean to just be name dropping, but say you have Andrew Tate, right? I recently heard Andrew Tate's name come up around among young people where I was at. Young people now would appreciate Andrew Tate and what he stands for, what he's versed in, as significant as it influential, but they're actually too young to have been familiar when he came on the scene, or the type of ideas that he's versed in came on the scene, such as anywhere from between like 2010 to 2015. I picked it up more so in 2015, but at 2015, I looked back into the catalog at about 2012, but it was coming out probably about maybe around 2010. I'd imagine 2008 to 2010 was that book by Neil Strauss, I think. That book, some things are recrudescence. In the previous video to this, I mentioned the word recrudescence. Pickup artistry itself, the concept, the gall of being a pickup artist, that ain't new, but sometimes it comes in and out of popularity, how people would get after that. And so that it has recrudescence, and that it re-emerged around that book um uh uh um by Neil Strauss. That book by Neil Strauss would impact things like the 21 convention. A lot of your early pickup artists, they were gathering around something called the 21 convention. I think that still takes place, but it was getting traction around 2012. If you were participating in 21 convention from 2012 all the way up to like nearly 2020, you would have been privy to very keen insight about getting your life together and your act together as a man, from other men largely, but also some women. You would be privy to different things about attraction. One thing that I learned from that group, there was one guy on those early 21 conventions. Like, he was a pickup artist. He was a Asian pickup artist with like this big old mohawk like that. And he's like, yeah, man, comedy really ain't nothing but a pattern. So comedy is just like anything. You can, if you appreciate patterns and you practice it, you can actually get better around being funny. Like, you can actually, if you just start to recognize patterns, like things that the more you practice, that's actually a lot of what practice is in general. Is that practice is just patterns. So like, if you see somebody doing some crazy stuff on the guitar, and it looked like, oh man, that's so far out what they do on the guitar. You just mess around with the guitar long enough, and you start to see sound patterns. Oh, that sounded cool. And then what if I do that? And what if I do that every day? Oh, it's a little pattern like that. So, oh, you just hand me a guitar. Oh, there go a little pattern like that, and it sounds cool like that. But it's the same thing with like humor, and I had picked that up from that guy. But that whole 21 convention, that was like avant. You had to be a little had a little bit of nerve to even to click on one of them videos like in 2015 and to go down that rabbit hole. You had to have a lot of gall. Like if a lot of people in my life knew I would have been checking out them videos back then, they wouldn't have had less respect than people already don't respect me and shit like back then. But it was actually like very cutting edge, and it wasn't actually part of the human experience to be familiar with some of these aspects of socializing because you would have had to have like an actual savvy family member or some kind of access to the actual the like sometimes they'll do like a survey, like a lot of businesses they'll put out like a survey, like a consumer survey. But sometimes in your life, if you have a certain background, like a constellation of friends, but more so like family and siblings, where those friends they get you some of those surveys you need in real life to know what actually worked in terms of like being cool and stuff like that. So some people that are so cool and shit in school, they're actually not that cool. They just have siblings that put them up on cool shit or put them around cool shit that they emulate and ape. I think when you imitate something that's called ape it, when people imitate and ape cool shit. I don't mean to be derogatory towards any other primates because we're all primates, but I think the word, just for vocabulary, the word is ape. When you ape the behaviors of being cool, or you actually just know what actually some seasoning, like for example, I was telling someone today that if you put on cocoa butter lotion, like it actually smells better than cologne. Sometimes it's very enticing. It's very it draws people in that cocoa lotion like that. Some scents like soap and shampoo, they're actually damn near better than anything you put on like cologne. And then even oils are yet higher than cologne, and they're gentler to like your fragrant oils. There's some places in St. Paul, like the Rosedale Mall in St. Paul, that has an ethnic store that sells like very gentle oils. There usually women have a stronger sense of smell than men. Like anywhere from 3 to 5 times it's appreciated in like medical books. But I think but these oils they're more gentle than cologne, and they fly in under the radar. And a lot of women appreciate things that are gentle, but also like savvy and like tasteful and tactful. So when you walk in with the oil, it's more tactful and it actually hits stronger for being less. Like in the Bible, it says that a soft word breaks a bone, but also a soft oil it may actually like win a heart more than something that loud of cologne. But the exception proves the rule too. So someone might win with some loud cologne. But but like but like different seasoning, like you would have to be you different stuff like that. You get onto stuff like that if you have certain consumer surveys with the constellation of your family and friends that work for you. But in the past, you wouldn't have been the whole human experience in the past. You wouldn't have been privy to a lot of that unless you were privy to it. But with what Neil Strauss did with that book is that he cracked open a lot of that and then that just made a whole rap that made a that near about made a that put a dent into the actual ethers and atmosphere and biosphere and stratosphere of the internet and the human understanding to where a lot of people are more savvy around like social stuff, and they know how to get on socially and romantically as they may not have in the past, to where now that shit is kind of like almost played out. But it hadn't always been like that, and it had been like one of the breakthroughs had been Neil Strauss at the beginning of that. So before your Andrew Tate's, and so now you have Andrew Tate, and he's talented and gifted in that way in that mode. But then before that, you would have, I think, Fresh and Fit. Fresh and Fit didn't build Andrew Tate, but they reminded a lot of us about what he was already up to, and then that only compounded and redoubled a lot of his talent and his pull. But then before Fresh and Fit, you had so this is the trajectory of like some people say the manosphere. So some very young people where I met today were referencing the manosphere. So all this is referring to the manosphere, and it actually is the manosphere proper. But I don't want to say proper. I don't mean better. But I'm saying the actual exact, technically what you're referring to with manosphere. This is a manosphere discussion. So right now, the face of it, the leading of which, the compelling of which, one would be like Andrew Tate. Probably when you think of manosphere, Andrew Tate. But if you check Andrew Tate out, he's not talking nonsense, and he's gifted, talented. But he didn't come out of nowhere. There's a history to things. So you have Andrew Tate now. Then before Andrew Tate, and part of that, you had Fresh and Fit, Myron and Fit. But then they were heavily influenced by Rollo Tomasi. That's not the man's real name, but his pen name is Rollo Tomasi. He actually is responsible for a lot of the talking points and tropes and insights and learning and what's viable and what some people don't appreciate about the understanding of the manosphere, the type of things that Fresh and Fit really enunciated well, and they brought it to like to young people. They actually brought it to women. That's actually so you could say that Fresh and Fit had been the devil because a lot of these things it was very like it was male centered, and so you would have to go. It wasn't all the way like in it wasn't like it wasn't well known to like women, and so if you unless a woman had a like a consumer survey of a boyfriend or someone in their life that was into that, but I don't think that it was that well known to women just because at those old seminars that I used to watch them when they were happening online, there were no women in there. But so you have Andrew Tate is like the proponent of that now, the main staunch proponent and gifted proponent and advocate of that line of thinking. But then before him, like right around the time of the pandemic, like sometimes we don't know how people are presented to us, where the hell they come from, because you got like I'm not trying to cast aspersions, but you got Fresh and Fit, Myron and Fit, and Myron is like he tells you that he used to be like sturdy around like law enforcement and like I think like high tier law enforcement had been Fresh and Fit. He looks like that shit, and he's kicking with all your finance ladies, but he should know what that shit's about. And yeah, I used to be a cop and shit. And that's just fucked up about that shit because I feel still so he's still a lot of a cop. But if that's what you're if that's his profession and vocation, that's good too because we need justice in this world. Like, I think because I think justice is good. So I'm not knocking him for that, but you can tell that he's still a lot of a cop. So here go this cop come out of nowhere telling us about all this here you got a cop come out of nowhere telling you about how to be a pickup artist. That's kind of crazy, like because you would think that cops wouldn't appreciate pickup artists because it's not very different than harassing if you're not like seasoned about it. But you also got to practice up to get good at it, and you're gonna take blunders, and those blunders are gonna be near reminiscent and not a stone's throw away from harassment or heaven forbid being misconstrued as worse if you're really engaging people in the old circle, older pickup artistry stuff, like in terms of like what they. I'm not going to say some of the lingo because that'll make me sound like one of them. But that older way of doing things before it got dialed in now or before it got mainstream, it had been reminiscent and near about harassment if you weren't smooth with it. But you got to not be smooth to build up to it if you didn't come from that, like from being privy to that, or that's not like so had been these cops come talk about us right at the time of the pandemic when we had nothing better to do than watch the internet. So here, where you got everyone watching the stage of the internet, here come this cop talk about pickup artist stuff. But then but they were heavily influenced by it and who they brought on their show, and they actually directly they appropriate their talking points directly with, hey man, I'm just about to tell you your talking points. Hey, this is such and such. I'm about to tell his talking points to you with him right there. But like it's my idea, but it's cool because he's right there. But Myron actually is very intelligent, and he actually adds a lot to it, and he riffs on a lot of that, and he's improvised. And I would say he has improved, if not better, and bested some of the contributions of Rollo Tomasi. I'm not saying he's better than him, but Rollo Tomasi, he appeared on that show Fresh and Fit when they were first popping on the like on in the time of the pandemic, the height of it, like 21, I think. And then that's actually the first time I was near about having the first time I had a thought to comment on a video had been Fresh and Fit. I had been familiar with a lot of their talking points probably before they were because I was watching it since back in the day. But I was almost gonna be like, "Hey man, you guys are the greatest thing in the world." I just wanted to say that, ha. But I would have looked like a jackass. But that actually, the first time I was about to comment on one of their videos when they popped up, my damn computer crashed right there, never to return again. Hadn't had problems before there. And then now I do content, but that was the first time I had enough gall to offer a comment after I watched like a lot of the type of stuff that they talk about. But then that person, Rollo Tomasi, he had been an author that they were familiar with his work, but where his name came to prominence was from this thing called the 21 Convention, anywhere from like maybe 3 to 5 or more years before Fresh and Fit pop got popping. Rollo Tomasi had been part of the Manosphere. I'm sorry, the 21 Convention and prominent within there. But then actually, right about the time that Fresh and Fit blew up, Rollo Tomasi fell out with the 21 Convention publicly. They had they traded. There was like a faction within the man. Well, a lot of times when you say Manosphere, you're actually referring to the 21 Convention. When you say Manosphere, the actual what the 21 Convention what they lifted from what they appropriated and were inspired by Neil Strauss and like some very actual some real life actually like very savvy social people. Like there's a person named Mystery, I think. He was a man that his name comes up if you're familiar with that entire that entire genre. His name comes up as you could almost say that they exactly built an entire movement of the world over based on the swagger of this person named Mystery. He had been a real person. I actually met a person like that today, like where I'm at. He's like a person that he describes himself as intergender, and he's confident to wear a dress in public. Now I wear nail polish like that. Just being creative, but also like it goes with guitar. Like it's kind of it look cool when you're playing guitar, and I do it more so like to be magical. But when you're being creative, you're not limited by anything. Not even what other people say is cool or not. But I so far haven't worn or been interested in wearing a dress. But this person it describes himself as intersexual, and he wears a dress. But he's exactly himself. He wears his dress because he's so much. I'm sorry, I actually don't know how they identify as male or female, but he talks about like some he's still sexually active like with women. I think so. That's the only reason I'm saying like he. But um, that's a person's business. But I didn't say their name. But all I'm saying is that he's that much of himself that he's cool to wear a dress, but also like he's the type of like you imagine like back in the day, like armies go through and they burn everything as they go. That's how he goes with love like that. He's crashing burn like all them romantic people that I said about like word salad this and that. Man, he'll set all their shit on fire just being himself like that in his dress like that and have people rocking just because he's that real like that. But you have some people that have that much swagger that change the whole world like that. So that person doesn't appreciate that manosphere shit like that, but he's actually cooler than that manosphere shit. A lot of it, and he has the experiences that I think that is about seeking is the type of lifestyle that person has. But there had been a person like that similar, I think, named Mystery. I'm not saying Mystery was that type of same person, but that much of appeal and that much of actual like activity socially and romantically. But then in the 21 convention, you had but like before Fresh and Fit, you had Ro Tomasi, and he also joined them, and he's still active. But a lot of he shaped a lot of their content. But they also brought that content to women because they had beautiful women. And the older iterations of that was not about sharing that with women because what's a lot of love, if we're honest, they say love is war, but what is war? War is advantage and disadvantage. So they actually brought whatever advantage. Hey man, this is the advantage of the shit of how the truth is. And I just want to let you know the truth, which is also our advantage, but we're gaining more of an advantage by sharing the advantage with you and seeing what you have to feel about that in front of everybody. And now you know about it, but it's the truth. So you can't argue with the truth. So it's more of the advantage because I told you about it. So it had been one advantage when I knew about it, but now I told you about it. And since you can't do it and I can't do nothing about it, it's an advantage like that. But the truth is the truth, man. So some people are interested in truth, they speak truth to the stuff that actually is better as a game, but that'd be my ass too. But before that, then you had the 21 convention, and you had some different people in there, and then you had that book by Neil Strauss. But all the way before that, in the 90s, as the book goes, you had the Art of Macking with Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed had the book The Art of Macking. I picked that up because I was about Macking in the 90s. I was the main mother effer having pretenses about being a romantic, listening to things like art. Like some people at my school, like some of them, like them sturdy people in my school, I would be up on like they had these things like called Sony mini disc, and it's like a recording device that can record music on it. Just it's built to do nothing but record music on it. That was better than burning CDs, but it was before like you had like iPods of any kind or like on demand music of any kind. You only had the only thing on demand you had was CDs. Then on top of CDs that you had to pay for and get through that whack shit to get through the cuts, you had to burn CDs. But then the Sony mini disc, it was better at burning and it was more compact like that, and you could put way more music on there than a CD. And so some of these people at my school they get their hand on my mini disc because like some people you get a reputation for whatever you're about in school. So one of my friends was visually deprived, and we connected over music that whole time. And so I was up on a lot of music so the 90s was the decade of music, and I had been up on it for the whole latter part of the 90s with my friend as it was coming out because we were about that music life. But some kids at school like, yeah, man, he got them beats you need. But some of them fools like, hey, let me check that out, man. And they be listening to they'll borrow my shit. I was cool. I was always cool, like letting people hold my shit. Yeah, you want to hold something of mine? Yeah, you can hold this real quick. But so if somebody holds something that belongs to someone, are they less of holding that? And then if they give it back, are they less of having give it back? Or are you more because you let them hold that? Because yeah, you let them hold this and but I'll let them check on my music, and then they'll be like the loudest person in the class. the class clown and shit, but then they get over on my music and they get quiet. So the teacher couldn't get the class clown quiet. I could get the class clown quiet with my beats and shit, and they get quiet for a while. They'd be like, "Hey man, hey man, hey, you're kind of weird," because I'll be having Easy E, real motherfucking G's next to your body's calling uh by R. Kelly next to I say the war should have stopped until these motherfuckers by Bone Thugs and Harmony next to Aaliyah um Young Nation Young Nation under a groove keeping it smooth Young Nation Young Nation by Aaliyah next to I say the war shouldn't stop until these motherfuckers by Bone Thugs and Harmony. So these people be like, it wasn't that the beats were whack, but it's like, man, you're kind of weird putting all that shit on one mix like that, staggered like that. Because that's just the type of shit I was on. I'll ride the bus home and shit. The bus be whacking shit. My same puppy love so my same puppy love that I was having real love with in ninth grade. We're on the phone that whole time for like the first semester of ninth grade. Then my egregious friend got in the way of me getting up with her on New Year's, where we otherwise would have got to make out. Then that fizzled out. Then by that point of the year, I had moved. I'm on now her same bus route, and now she got a boyfriend that had been my low key competition while I was messing with her in puppy love phase. Then he got all the way on to visiting her daily. I had to watch him ride home with my one of my first loves. Come have my actual like. Sometimes you have people that are like you don't even got a problem with it. They're not even on your radar, but they're like, hey man, what's up? So what you up on? Like what's this and that? Oh yeah, hey this and that. They're your main competition. Like they're having a problem with you being yourself and shit. Like yeah, that motherfucker right there. I can get over on that motherfucker right there. Hey, what's up, man? This and that. And now they're messing with your girl and shit. Not just because she's that fly, because she had been that fly, but also because she's your girl. So there they go. And you gotta watch them ride the bus home together. And, they're all up at the front and shit, like all quiet and shit with that other fool and shit that they don't know how they feel about that dude and shit. The ex puppy loving shit in the back and shit. But they're about to go get off at her stop every day, every damn day to do cool shit. But I'm in the bus with my. I might actually sound kind of sketchy with this, but I was saying I had nothing better to do on the bus than listen to beats that whole time, and that's the only thing that I enjoyed about school was listening. It was the damn commute, listening to beats because I'd be the last stop. But on my shit, on my stuff, I have all kinds of staggered cuts on there. Um, but but I was about like romance and like Too Short. I'd have Too Short on there, and I'd be trying to call myself a Mac back then. So I'd be messing with the art of Macking. I also used to. I always wasn't the most honest about procuring books when I was young. So I think I did pay for the art of Macking, but I would have just been at bookstores because I was interested in books. But I didn't always have a way to pay for them. But I was interested in books when I was a child, and so I was familiar with that book, The Art of Macking. But I think that just the idea, a lot of the premise of the art of Macking, it is in the fact that you would put that into a book by Nasheed by Tariq Nasheed. I think that that was picked up. The recrudescence of that came back with Neil Strauss, and the rest was history of that. But Tariq Nasheed himself, he talks about now he's moved over from talking about that stuff. I think he did have some YouTube content about that type of stuff, but he talks more about the African American struggle. Now that's what I'm getting back to. He talks about the plight of the African American struggle as a living member of the African American heritage himself. But then he talks about something called Majora, is that some of the experience of the African American people in the United States, it's actually more traumatic and more profound and more redeeming than almost any group of human beings that human experience over. That's a bold thing to say for anyone. I don't mean to cast light because you can't compare suffering and you can't compare beauty. You cannot, but you can say that the experience of the African Americans has been uniquely heinous, a unique atrocity. The experience of the Africans upon the Americas, like the slavery in South America, Central America, the Caribbean, and the Americas, you cannot compare the suffering of that and the loss of that. You cannot compare that. But they are unique. They are unique in these different areas because you had different laws and different practices and customs and cultures and people, both the local people and the people that would settle there from Europe and the people that were coming from Africa. They were different from the South America, Central America, Caribbean, and in the United States. But in the United States, I don't know if Majora refers to United States only or the entire Americas. Like when they say African descendants of slaves, that might actually refer to the entire Americas. So I don't mean to misappropriate that, but even if you were to take in any one of those places isolated or them together, that's a unique experience in the atrocity in the human experience, but also a unique lesson and redemption and story and struggle and plight and sacrifice and testimony. And the name of that is Majora, according to Tariq Nasheed. And if you are, or you've been blessed to be around American African descendants of slaves, you can feel what Majora is at sometimes, and you can really appreciate how awesome that is. But still, I think that you could say that maybe none of us had yet been completely Hivan Mukti, because we all have people we love that are not completely free, but that's not limited to American Africans. But what I was going to say is that if you had to appreciate what keeps us in chains this long, some of it is history, because it's not that, like, who are we struggling, who's they, who are we, a lot of people you grew up in school with, like, you knew people that were good in sports, in music, in creativity, in school, in life, in streets, in anything. You knew people like that in any walk of life, right? And you knew a lot of other people that were like kind of like just regular people. So how are we still struggling, how are we still in chains this long like that? How, because so we had so many great people, so many great leaders, how are we still overwhelmingly, convincingly, arguably fettered, the entire people, but any one of us, but also the entire people? Because if any of us are fettered, then we're all fettered. How are we still fettered? I think some of it is because of history. Because if you back in the day, like if you were to walk off the plantation, there may have been more or less stopping you from walking off the plantation. Part of it would have been, you would appreciate that, like, the deepest jail doesn't have a fence. That's why it's more of a fence. Like, there's a movie called Life, I think, with I referenced it before on here, with it's with Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy, and it's about like a work stint, a work like incarcerated on a work, what do you call that, it's like a labor prison, like where you're doing manual labor as part of your service, or your reforming. And they didn't necessarily have a fence there. I think they had a shotgun and a gun. Tell them about the gun line, Bob. I'm about to tell them about the gun line, Bob. Tell them about the gun line. I'm not sure how they sounded that, but it's like, I had to tell them about the gun line. And all your eyes better not be what, you can go anywhere you want to go, but you go down there and Boston about to let you know how about to be, because ain't none of y'all finna go past the gun line. They had to let y'all know about the gun line, didn't that? So I'm there, y'all do what y'all gotta do out there. I do what I gotta do, and doing things, because boss, he gotta do, we all gotta eat, didn't that? But I ain't got no problem. Y'all ain't got no problem. Just don't go past the gun line like that. You need to know about the gun line. This your first day. I understand it's your first day now, but you ain't get no pat in the back, ain't get no pass, ain't get no favor, and damn sure ain't had the gun line like that. Cause the gun line had been here before you had got here, about to be here, why you got here, about to be at the gun line, and the whole time ain't nobody had, and you ain't been the first, ain't one been the first, ain't about to be the first to get on past the gun line, cause the gun line had been here like that, but had been about the gun line like that. The gun line, tell them about the gun line, about they know about the gun line, about they should be good to go. They know about them the gun line now, about we about to get back to work, and it ain't finna be no problem, cause I let them know about the gun line. How you told me that they know about the gun line now? Ain't nobody, so the gun line, it hadn't been necessarily a fence. It had been maybe a shotgun. But even what would actually be more scary than it, my father told me that one time he was watching a video about pirates, I think overseas, and they were saying that pilots that were fighting the Western forces, and the pirates would say, "Hey man, we know y'all got the guns and shit, but we're actually more scared of hunger than your bullets and shit. Just so you know that this what scare us is actually being hungry and shit more than your bullets and your guns and shit. So we're about to be after the food and shit, and so that's what we're thinking about, not the guns and shit. That's what my father said, that if you actually have real struggle in your life, hunger is more scary than bullets, because you can get past bullets, you can dodge bullets, but you can't dodge hunger like that. And hunger might actually hurt worse over time than even a damn bullet, according to my father, because my father's been shot before. But but so what might be more formidable running off the plantation back in the day, before they would have had a fence, even before, or if they had or didn't have a shotgun, would actually be the economic ramifications, that if you actually did run off of the local center and support and gravity and and constellation of your means of support economically, in terms of substance, maybe social support also, but substance, you would be terrified. You're not terrified. You would be daunted or prevented from escaping, because of the economic ramifications, just in terms of resources, not only being hunted or getting past guns and potential mutilation and punishment and torture and torment for having run, and also humiliation and being victimized in front of the people you love and respect, such as they may not look at you the same, which is equally tormenting, or punitive and damaging and heinous. You would be limited by the repercussions or the potential repercussions of economic deprivation as you understand it, while you're also deprived of an education, because that would be hard to reason and be some of the things that we can conceive now with the benefits of education and having being exposed to different ideas and facts. It would have been way different without the benefit. I think it's still running. So all I'm saying is that so if you were thinking about a prison, right? The first and maybe the deepest form of fettering and oppression is actually your fellow inmates, because your fellow inmates have likely been inculcated and or incentivized to the very thought paradigm that keeps you bound, had been your actual peers. And so they could prevent you, sabotage you, or fail you in your initiative to escape. Then you would have the I'm not saying then as though I had this all the way fleshed out, but I'm just reasoning. Then you would have the immediate physical repercussions in terms of like a firearm, or I think the firearm now and how it functions in society now is reminiscent of the whip. Instant, uh, instant, horrible, and sometimes permanent repercussion that's also has a social stigma. So you didn't always know if a whip was going to kill somebody, but it could kill somebody, but it would horrify a person. The potential of the whip is what the whip is, but also that's how the firearm is now. And I made a few videos back in the catalog talking about that. But then you could also have like potential lynching or humiliation or flogging, or the actual confiscating of the privileges that amount to the opportunities for life and livelihood upon the earth, like in progeny and food privileges around a plantation. You could be stripped of that if you try to run. But then if you did run, you would have the fear of being without, the fear of lack, the fear of hunger is one. Then you get out, you have the fear of the elements in the wilderness, where you actually didn't get to grow up around outdoorsmanship and actually traveling on foot because you had been bound by the plantation likely. So you may not have the actual experiences in seasoning and understanding and experience to navigate the land with people who did on your case with more resources than you, like horses and dogs and equipment and actual infrastructure, an entire network, an entire nation that is predicated on your suffering like that. You have to get past all that. That can assume tell on you that whole time, all that you get past all that. But then all I'm saying is that what would actually be the deeper thing than all that, if you actually got past all that, what would actually rein you in is your history. Your history would take you back. So you get like a simple way to say that is that, so say you get to the land of freedom, right? You get to the north. Your history, that is your name, could actually a bounty hunter could come behind you based on your name, that is your history. But for now, we don't have a lot of that. What we do have is that when you try to change your life, right, you go over to the next city, the next state, sometimes the next country, right? You try to start a new life for yourself. They want to know about your history. They want to know about your work history, your medical history, your criminal history, right? So whatever you've been through, the fact that you're still able-bodied, because you actually, when you talk to another person, you actually don't know what another person's capable of. I bet you likely most of the time you got taken for your lunch, you thought that person was anything but what they had been to you, and they may have not been that before they were that to you. That's how you got taken in, because they couldn't be that one, based on their history. So actually, the history would be the means of actually confounding another person. Because if something wasn't on a person's history, the best place to hide an absent or bad history, if it hasn't been discovered, is in a good history. But also, the best way to limit to misconstrue a history different than it was, or to bind a good future by a misconstrued and or less than excellent history, or excellent history sometimes, would be to confound the future with the history like that. So you go sign up for this and that. Yeah, but you never did nothing wrong. But why did you have this many jobs? You had a lot of jobs. That could be a problem. So also those jobs are a lot of experience, and you may have had some of those jobs may have failed because you're doing the exact appropriate thing there, the actual ethical thing, even as it cost you your standing and your respect. You had actually stood on. If you were to break down what you did, you were actually more ethical, and that more ethical for doing what was right when it would cost you, or it would seem incompetent to your peers or people looking into you in the future. You still did what was right, and you paid for that. But all I'm saying is that your history can be very punitive in this life, and I think that one of the actual real crux, all those things I mentioned, had been the crux of what's keeping people oppressed to the present day. I would say a lot of it would be the misunderstanding of our history, but also the misapplication of our history onto and upon and overlaying our future. Sometimes they do movies like where they try to reenact slavery. Like I think you had like some famous actors have had different films where they try to construe history. Some of that is the word anachronistic is like when something's out of its historical place, out of context. If you were to take anything that I've offered on this video and segment it and take it out of context, it would exactly be um, falsifiable and anything but what I had been appreciate. If you read a book and you skip one page, if you damn near skip one word in a book, you gloss over a word that you don't fully understand in a book, you can lose your entire scope of that entire book because it's now entirely out of context. Just because you gloss over one word that you weren't entirely sturdy around, you just undermine that entire endeavor of reading that book because you had glossed over that word. Therefore, the book is out of context. The Grand Tashri Bey said that in the strictest sense, in true scholarship, as he would enunciate that, when you're reading, you don't go past any such word as you're not completely clear upon. Otherwise, your scholarship is a little bit it's less than total, it's less than congruent, and it's less than absolute. So it's falsifiable, and you can get called to task if you were to venture some of those statements publicly. Which to be an intellectual, according to him, you have to be published to be an intellectual. That is, you have to be accountable to your peers and to a broader public, a general public, an anonymous public of varying stature and background to engage you and potentially offer criticism and appraisal, and that is engagement, where you're also accountable to their engagement because their engagement, yay or nay, can affect your standing and reputation, yay or nay. You have to do all that continually to maintain the actual status and um, standing of an intellectual, and that is also scholars. Sometimes a scholar is a form of intellectual, not the only, like a comedian is actually an intellectual, a musician is an intellectual, a writer is an intellectual, a painter is an intellectual, an academic is an intellectual, a student is an intellectual, a hobbyist reader who's sincere is an intellectual. Probably a lot of people creating content. Content creation is an intellectual. Content engagement is an intellectual. That is commenting, liking, viewing is an intellectual. So many things. There's so many forms of intellectual that none of which is greater or less than the other. If it's sincere and it's enjoyable and it's congruent, and it undertakes discipline. It represents discipline and rigor at some level, such as to be potent enough to be creative with it, or at least consistency. But uh um um but I a little bit lost that train of thought. But I think that uh um you when you um sorry, I lost that train of thought. But what I was wanting to say is that um our history can be exactly the thing that's used against us, and but sometimes, so that's how significant it is to take something out of context. Is that one form of being an intellectual is to be a scholar. But if a scholar were to read something and gloss over anything in their scholarship, they can't call themselves a scholar. You actually be a faker if you did a scholarship and you glossed over anything to any degree and you pass that off as scholarship, or you just rock with that, and built upon that, you wouldn't you would be something of a faker. And being fake doesn't go with things like scholarship, because you get credit and you publish it and you potentially impact other people's understanding and their decisions and behavior based on that understanding and their outcomes. So it's not something to play with, like scholarship, if it's going to be real, but and it's going to be active. But so when you make a historical reenactment of things like slavery, or even if you comment on slavery from beyond it, I'm just doing a little bit of that now, if I'm being honest. if you make commentary about it, or you reenact it, you re engineer it, or represent it, you may misconstrue it, and therefore mock it and affront it. But also it can be harmful, and you also can maintain some of the actual the tropes and the misunderstandings, and the but also some of the actual the shortcomings of what you're sometimes to like to some things are better not to speak on, but sometimes things it can be arguable whether things are better not to portray. But sometimes I think that if we actually, I'm not saying that we should forget or gloss over history, but I'm just saying that something in reminding ourselves of history, it can be enlightening and a form of freedom, but also the same thing that can enlighten you and emancipate you can also bind you. So when we have to go everywhere in life telling everyone our history, we're compelled to tell people at least our professional and sometimes medical and legal history, if not family history and other things like that. It's like so the bag person, the bag lady, the bagpipe player, the bag lady can't get past their bags because they need their bags where they're going. They're actually asked for their bags where they're going. They won't get on. So you're trying to get a plane out of nowhere, a ticket out of Dodge, but you actually can't get up on certain planes. That is new lifestyles, new livelihoods, new professions, new opportunities, new assets, new things that would serve you. You can't get onto a lot of them without the very thing that you're trying to get past. So that's also that some of the torment of like you imagine like a battered person, like a battered woman, is that when a battered I'm now I've been somewhat battered in my at least in my livelihood and some of my social standing in my family where I'm coming from. I've been battered to different degrees. My whole life over I have been, but especially recently, very recently, I've been battered. And then also battered by anonymous people in strangers in the community, such as to receive different attempts at violence upon my person when I don't know people. Those are different forms of battery. And actually, I've been injured sometimes fleeing those attempts. That's real, actual violence that I suffered as an outcome and function and correlation of attempts at battering a person to different degrees. But where I'm at, you may actually meet. I've met some actually people that are coming from what like being battered women, not only but also women. And if you can imagine how scary it'd be to run away from a situation of getting battered, that is just very reminiscent of slavery, not very different than slavery, a form of slavery, a form of abuse. You can imagine one of the things that's scary about it is that it's not just getting away from it, but the actual history of it is that where are you going to go to really get away from your past? Because you can run from a person for a time, you can run from a location for a time, but you can't run from your past. So and that's guaranteed and is built off that because that also concedes leverage and privilege is that everyone who doesn't have a past or who is benefited by not having a past or not being known to have a past, they exactly are better suited in a place where people are being punished by their past, so that actually redoubles into the seats of privilege and entitlement, such as your seats of higher learning, which actually codify and write the books and give us the structures that we have in different professions, in different institutions, in the entire society over. It's structured and replicated and designed and sustained and guaranteed by the very seat of privilege entitlement, your seats of higher learning, largely, or people that at least identify with it and think like that, such that it's actually guaranteeing our oppression from henceforth had already got done, but now and forever is what they're always seeking, and it's exactly the way. So we've been oppressed this long, henceforth, but it's intended to, and it's in the process of and momentum of and that inveterate habit of continuing to be now and forever. And the way you get that done is by exactly bringing along the past into the future by making people explain themselves constantly about their past. And that's just what I was wanting to say about history. But I had some people in here hop up and say that they like they enjoy history, and history is beautiful because the what history, as much as I'm talking about history, it is actually our means of freedom, and actually because it allows us to understand who we had been that whole time, who is not who we had been told we had been, or what we had told we had been, or where or why or how. None of that is the truth. But if we had known the truth, we wouldn't have been fettered then, and we won't be fettered now if we know the truth. So a lot of times you get in trouble actually. So you go somewhere and they want to know your past, right? But the way you get in more trouble, or sometimes trouble for the first time, is you try to explain your past to someone. You try to explain the truth in your past. People don't want to know the truth in your past. That's where we get. That's where I've got in trouble. That's where people get in trouble. They don't care about the truth. They care about the past as it is on paper and what that means for their paper and your paper and our paper, which is their paper now. what do you look like on paper? I need to know what you were on paper in the past, which is about to be your present and future, whatever you were on paper in the past. The truth of it doesn't matter. And if you try to get that truth, so business and pleasure doesn't math. Business and pleasure doesn't mix. We know what comes with mixing business and pleasure, but also truth and history doesn't mix. I'll be one to say that sounds crazy to say something like that. Truth and history doesn't mix. That is in professional settings where livelihood is on the table, where stakes are on the table, where outcomes are on the table, and it's amenable and negotiable, and it comes down to the bottom line that's money, baby. I don't even say mean to say money, baby. That's disrespectful because I love everyone on here more than money, so I won't say money, baby, like that. That's actually that's an oxymoron right there. That's a little bit of I don't think that's cool. Some people could make that sound cool, but it don't sound cool me saying that. But what we barter with of our history, what we're demanded to present when we're intending to barter something, whether we're intending to sell our labor or sell some of our assets or our different propensities that we have, strong suits that we need to survive. We were given certain gifts in this life and interests and passions and inclinations so that we could be of service to others and ourselves. But we're sometimes prevented from doing that by our past. But as those type of activities go, when you mix the truth with that, it's near about as bad, if not worse, than mixing. I'll say it's worse than mixing business and pleasure because you don't get no business or pleasure if you had mixed truth with history because you ain't getting nowhere without that history being what it need to be. Both the part of it that was pretty and less than pretty, it need to be what it's supposed to be to make things operate viable the way they are now and in the future with bartering. And if you construe that with truth and you try to put truth up in there, that's gonna make it worse. And so it's sad because like when I first got in trouble for trying to tell the truth in my story, I was very young, like 19. But likely I don't recall all those conversations, but they were probably asking me questions that were none of their damn business as fellow adults. What the hell I had going on then, but more so as a child, as I had only been but an adult for like a year or two. They're asking me shit about my childhood, and I was trying to tell them the truth about it, and it got my ass strung up like that back then, and I'm still paying for that now. But also learning from pain from it and trying to offer my story about that after I've done on this channel to be transparent. But transparency and truth is the only thing greater than oppression and had been with us the oppression and is the truth of our story, but only where that's appropriate. And even people that like talking deep and being open and stuff like that, even they wouldn't appreciate if you try to mix truth where it doesn't serve business, but also sometimes so so truth doesn't always serve business. It doesn't truth doesn't always serve history when that history is in the interest of serving business or expedient to business. Um, but um, but all I meant to say is that truth doesn't go with the type of history that we're demanded of in our goings on that have to do with business. But truth is yet our real story and greater than even our present ways of doing business. The truth in our past and what's possible in the future is better than our present mode of operating because anything can be improved with truth. But there's just a discrepancy in what people are asking of us when they're asking our history and what our truth had been. If you get to explaining your truth, you're just like that bag lady that can't get past her bags. The reason the bag lady can't get past her bags is because she needs what's in her bags. She thinks, but she's demanded within her bags. She thinks, and she might not get past those bags until she get rid of the damn bags and don't have no more use for anyone that ask her for them. That's one thing like that. Maybe the same thing for a bagpipe player. But I just I had one more thing, and I want to just do this once for all. I wanted to talk about colors a little bit. In that some actually I I got one bet. I don't want to rush someone about color, so I got one more in the series. But I will say that when I pop back in with the thing about colors, I'm not gonna do nothing but talk about that subject since I've been alluding to that. But it probably won't be a long video. But I have some things to say about colors as they would appear in nature and in man-made activities, which is also nature. So as colors appear in nature, I'm gonna talk about that and what we can appreciate about that. But I hope I thanks for anyone who I'm not sure if anyone's currently in here, but thanks for anyone who landed here and all, especially the people who said hi, and thanks for the thanks for the solid the brothers in here. I got J Man in here. I'm not the we know what the name Jordan's about. You don't get on with the name Jordan in this life unless you got something great. And also I see have a name that look Latin, and I love my gente, adora mi gente de Latin. I got that from Jorge Masvidal said that in the interview. He's actually from Cuba, but I rock with him, and I say adora mi gente Latin. And I had a brother that's Latin in here, and it looked like I had going back, I had at least two honey in here. I had a name that looked Latin, and actually it was at two. I had, it looked like I had me a beautiful lady in here that was Latin, a brother, and then another beautiful lady named Rose, one of the first girls that I ever got on with at my friend's house where we were having like get-togethers as kids and stuff, as it was appropriate. So, but thanks for anyone tapping in with this at all, and I hope this can be uplifting. And I only say this in the name of truth to have to transcend and improve in life and get better. But I was referencing some heavy parts of our story as human beings, and I want to enter this. I want to submit this video with humility and humble myself to say that whatever is true that I say is from inspiration and the contribution and sacrifice of other people that allow me to speak like this and have a platform, and also for y'all for having respect to rock with me and give me the engagement to have a message out here. So shout out anyone out there. One love. All y'all are beautiful forever. Henceforth now forever. You're beautiful. We're beautiful. We out of here. Sayonara. Saka. Peace out.